So welcome to our webinar, Returning to Bosnia. I've put in the tagline there, bringing peace, building resilience and improving quality of life, because this is really where we have got to with the work we're doing. And this is why we're excited to share this webinar and share our journey with what we're doing at the moment. From the last trip last year from Bosnia to our next trip, which is actually this week. We actually go at the end of this week. So I know we left it quite late to kind of put this out, but we really felt it was a good idea to share with you where we're going and what we're doing with our work at the moment, and really kind of get more interest from people, more connection with people. And we will be creating regular blogs and regular videos as we're out there this time, really documenting not just what it's like for the people we work with, but what it's like for us as we're working out there. What I would like to explain is that this webinar may contain some graphic descriptions of war and violence, obviously by the very nature of what we're going to talk about. So I do need to remind you that you are responsible for your own emotional health and well-being. If for any reason you have a problem with anything that we discuss in the webinar, then please do hang on at the end or contact me or Caroline after the webinar, and we can talk to you after the webinar. Okay, if you are a therapist or practitioner, you may have a swap partner, so bear that in mind also. Okay, so what I'd like to do for those of you that don't already have certain skills, I'd like to just talk you through heart-focused breathing, just so that you can have this breathing technique through maybe some of the things you might find difficult to listen to. We aren't going to get kind of sensationally graphic, but we are obviously going to talk about some very difficult situations. So I'd like you, if you would, just follow me through these simple instructions. This is heart-focused breathing, which is the first sort of technique from the HeartMath Institute. And you'll see later on, it does form some of the basis of the work we're doing at the moment. And what it does is it uses your heart rate variability to kind of calm your autonomic nervous system and calm the mind and calm the body. So if you'd like to, you don't have to, but it does help to sort of anchor that feeling in and to bring your attention to your heart. If you'd like to put one or both hands over your heart area and just begin to breathe a little deeper than you would usually breathe. And just breathing in and breathing out. And as you do that, I want you to now just imagine that the breath is going directly into and out of the heart area, straight in through the chest and out through the chest. So breathing in, and the breath comes in, and breathing out, so the breath goes out. And breathing in, and breathing out. And as you do that now, just count with me: in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just continue to breathe in and breathe out. Now, if for any reason you find that you are triggered, i.e. something has been said that makes you feel a particularly strong emotion, or you feel upset, then I want you to just put your hand on your heart and breathe in and breathe out of the heart. Okay. Now, I'm not going to suggest that you shouldn't feel emotion. I think it's our compassion and our love that enables us to feel those emotions. But just notice how you're feeling. Like as we said, take responsibility for what is coming up and use this technique if you need to. But there's nothing wrong, certainly, with feeling that emotion. And I can absolutely guarantee that there were going to be times when I won't be able to talk, because I still get a lump in my throat when I talk about some of the things. And I don't see that as a bad thing. It's a very healthy thing to feel that emotion, to feel that compassion, and that care for our fellow human beings. And this is partly why I give Caroline most of the talking to do about the stories, because I can't talk about them.
And I don't know how you think I can. So, but we will be doing lots of heart focused breathing throughout ourselves, no doubt. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, just to introduce Caroline, we will do a proper introduction in a moment. So, those of you that know Caroline know that she is an amazing practitioner and specialist in PTSD. She'll talk a little bit about that with you in a short while. I'm just going to run very quickly through the main slides, basically, to keep us on track. So, the webinar is basically just going to cover who we are, how we got involved with work in Bosnia. We're going to give you some stories of healing and recovery from our past experience, and talk a little bit about the paper that has been written on using EFT and Matrix in Bosnia. A little bit about developing the new techniques with the basis of HeartMath, the technique that we've just taught to you, and how that has formed a special technique that I'm developing called heart-focused healing. And I say although it was kind of my idea and I'm developing it, I certainly aren't developing it on my own. There are a group of people I'm working with, and obviously in particular Caroline. So when I say it really isn't me on my own. Then we will talk about our new community interest company, Community Resilience Network, and our forthcoming trip to Sarajevo, and then how you can get involved. And we hope that's going to inspire you to work with us and to think about how you can help not just the work we're doing in Bosnia, but the other community resilience work that we want to do. Okay. So, without further ado, may I introduce my esteemed colleague and very, very dear friend. So, Caroline, would you like to tell everybody a bit about yourself, Caroline?
Oh, this is always the hard part, talking about yourself, isn't it? I'd rather talk about other people, but I know quite a few of already know me. But for those of you who don't, I'm an EFT trainer, and for a while actually was a matrix re-imprinting trainer. EFT, in case you don't know, it's an amazing technique which has been helping people all over the world for quite a long time, and it sort of, putting it very briefly, involves tapping on specific acupressure points, which is very calming for the body, while you focus on a specific memory, event, or feeling, whether that's an emotional one or a physical one, and it's very helpful for an awful lot of people, and has been used with a lot of people for PTSD and serious trauma. So I came across it in, I think it was 2007 originally, this strange tapping thing, when I was really very unwell, increasingly severe symptoms of ME, fibromyalgia, and a host of other physical stuff, and a lot of stress around a specific event and memories about that. And it was really EFT, and in particular matrix re-imprinting, that helped me move on from that and just completely let it go. And so as soon as I could, I trained as a practitioner and went into practice. Before that, I studied health studies, and that was at university as a very mature student. and that really involves looking at the impact of the environment, in when I say environment, in all ways, on a person's health, and in particular in community health, and looking at ways to help people take more responsibility for and improve their own health and well-being. So anyway, after EFT training, I've and particularly with my interest in trauma and community work, I've trained in a number of other energy therapies and meridian tapping techniques to broaden my skill base. So I've got a bigger toolbox to help people. And it was really through that work, I was doing a lot of swapping sessions with a very dear friend of mine at the time, Fiona Smith, who came across the charity Healing Hands Network and introduced a couple of the trustees to EFT matrix reimprinting, and they were very, very interested, and asked if she would go to Bosnia, where they have been doing a lot of work since 1996 using hands-on therapies with people who have still suffering with the effects of their experiences in the war in Bosnia, and she asked me if I would join her, which I agreed to straight away without really knowing anything about what we were going to do. And I'll talk more about what we did later on, because it ended up as really quite a very interesting study with amazing results, and we ended up writing a paper which Sammy has already referred to. But I'm from a forces family. Chris is online, who's my sister, and our father was in the Fleet Air Arm, and I married into the Air Force, if you like. My husband, he actually joined up so we could get married, and he was in the forces for 12 years. And that was at the time of the height of the Troubles in Ireland, and the time of the Falklands War as well. We've been very fortunate to just miss some things that happened, but some of the people I knew weren't so fortunate, and I was very aware of the effect of traumatic experiences on the communities as a whole. My background is in the voluntary sector, and I've been involved with a number of different charities and voluntary organisations, most notably as a youth and community development worker, and working with isolated older people. But again, it's all about community, and that is very much what I care about, is the effects on community as a whole, from what happens with individuals sometimes. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and I care very much about what happens in this world, because I really want them to have happy, healthy, wonderful lives in the future. And above all, I'm a human being, and as a human being, you know, we're all connected. Everything is connected, and if we can help somebody, at least one person, find internal peace, then that's going to have effect on everyone else as well. So yeah, it's a little bit about me, and really in relation to why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It just feels like it's what I'm here to do and what I have to do. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I'm just noticing there's some more messages. So people are in from all over the place, which is lovely. Isle of Wight, Lancashire. Actually, Mary's in Holland. And Christine's asked a question already. So it's a great question, Christine. I'm making a note of it so that I can make sure I touch on it through something else I'm going to say. But we'll come back to it at the end as well if I haven't covered what, a satisfactory answer. So thanks. Yeah, if you can send your questions to me early, I will. When Caroline's talking, I will just try to check the questions. So yeah, I've got another one from Leslie. Thanks, Leslie. So hi from. Okay, lovely. So it's like doing three things at once. It's great. Okay, so me, who am I? I've put Sam and I've put me E in a little brackets there because people do ask me, is it Sam or Sammy? It's Sam. I changed my name to Sam with my mum, to my mum's sadness. But when we travel in China, people call me Sammy, and it has become the more friendly. My friends call me Sammy, so either is correct. It really is fine. My background is a school teacher. I was a teacher in a Catholic college in Shropshire. 11 to 18, I was in charge of GCSE graphics and design and the A-level design. I did that for about 5 years, and then when I moved to Manchester, I then got involved in web design and web work for a while, and photography. The way I got into the therapy side was having a major meltdown. I had a meltdown, a minor meltdown before, but kind of partially recovered from that. And then when I met Vic and fell madly in love, you kind of just got distracted from doing that self work. And then later on, it all kind of came out. So I did find EFT first, EFT and emotrance through Cole Dawson, but really I've listed the main areas I'm qualified in. So I'm a mental health master trainer. Even though I'm now going in to do my own training, I'm still a member of Meta Medicine and the International Meta Medicine Association, and still a master trainer. I'm an EFT and emotrance master trainer, and again, although I won't be training any of those trainings, that is my qualification. And the area that I'm working a lot in at the moment is heart math. So I'm a one-to-one provider and a group trainer. It's called a trainer. It's more of a leader, actually, because you can't train people to be one-to-one providers. You can just train them how to use the techniques and to use them with each other and within a corporate setting, for example, or a group setting, or as a community setting, as we're doing. But Vic and myself are the only people who are trained and have permission to use the heart math techniques outside of our area of license, our area where we're based. And that's because of the big work that we're doing in Indonesia and Thailand, which I'll mention later. So we have quite a good grounding in using these techniques with large groups of people and large communities. I am trained in a number of other energy therapies. I'm not even going to try to list them. Probably a couple of key ones are NLP master and hypnotherapist. And Psych K comes into the techniques that I'm now using quite a bit. And perhaps the Qigong. So all of these things I've been kind of putting together, and I've created conscious health practice and heart-focused healing, which I'll mention a little bit later. You may know me as author of Meta Messages. If you're a practitioner in EFT or matrix reimprinting, you've probably heard Carl talk about meta health in the book, and that's my first book. I'm now writing a second book, which is the 7 Steps to Conscious Health Practice. So that's a little bit about both of us. We'll talk a bit now about kind of how we came together and how we came to work together on this project. So Caroline, would you like to step back in, because you were there first, if you like?
Okay. Yeah. Well, the Healing Hands Network I've already mentioned, and you can see on your screen now. It really played a big part in how we ended up coming together and what we're doing now. I've already mentioned that my friend Fiona Smith, who I knew very well at the time, and we were swapping sessions with each other and doing a little bit of work together. We ended up going to Healing Hands Network in Bosnia for 2 weeks as volunteers, member volunteers of Healing Hands Network, and we put together a program that was specifically working with people who were referred to the program as being especially in need. So they were all people who were experiencing post-traumatic stress or severe trauma. They were all had been imprisoned in concentration camps during the 1992-95 war, had also been, most of them, under house arrest, and a whole host of other things happening to them during that time as well. It was a very, very humbling time. It was very moving, inspiring, and really set the groundwork for everything that I've done since. But I'd always attracted clients who had experienced very troubled backgrounds. Sometimes one-off events, but more often they were much bigger things. People who had been through wars, through natural disasters, who had been born into cults. And I did my best not to in the early days, because, you know, this sort of work really takes a lot of experience. It's not something you can really go into straight after you've qualified. You need practice, you need a background in working in this field, really. But it just kept coming at me. So I've learned from my clients in Bosnia, and I've the trip we're about to make will be my 4th visit there, and with individual clients too. And then I met Sam, and was very interested in the work that Sam and Vic were doing. And the more we started talking, the more I thought, you know, this is somebody that I really need to do some more work with. But I don't know if you want to talk some more about that, Sam, about what you've been doing out in
Yeah,
Indonesia.
yeah. You'll see a picture to the right. Unfortunately, the work is confidential at the moment, in that I can't say who it's for, but I can say that we've been out twice and we've trained for about 2,000 workers in Indonesia and Thailand, and we're going back out. Actually, as soon as we come back from Bosnia, we're back for 2 weeks and then we go back out. We It's as part of another project, which is why it's confidential. It's a pilot project, and part of that pilot project, it came up that there was in the reports that they were making on the progress, that there was some symptoms of stress coming up. So Vic mentioned, of course, that he said, "Oh well, my wife's an expert in stress, and perhaps you would like to talk to her about what we might be able to do to help." So we made a suggestion, we made a proposal of what we might be able to do to help. And they have people, they knew cognitive behavioral therapy already, but what I explained to them was that the techniques that we use are precognitive, and that if you understand stress and trauma, when somebody is already in stress and they're already triggered, then it's very difficult to use the cognitive part of your mind, because actually you go into fight flight and you go into the hindbrain and you go into survival mode. So cognitively working out what's wrong is actually very difficult. So we needed something very quick, very simple, and very effective. And we had only 3 hours training to train the workers. We did them in groups of well, they vary between 80 and 150 depending. And in those 3 hours, we explained to them what was happening when they were triggered, what stress is, what the fight flight mechanism is, and how it's a natural and normal response. It's actually a useful response, but that once somebody is triggered, let's say unnecessarily, when they don't need to be, what effect it has on health. And we talked about the cumulative effects of number of stressors, and we do some good demos and some exercises. And we got people to identify with what stressed them, what the collective sort of experiences of stress were, and what their personal stresses were. And then we get them to, and then we give them the exercises, and we use the breathing technique I taught you at the beginning to change their physiology, to then change the way that they're able to think and concentrate and reason and be more creative and problem solve. So that gives them, it's what, of course, takes you from cortical inhibition, where the thinking part of the brain is inhibited, into cortical facilitation. So the brain balances and we come out of survival mode and we go into rest and repair. But more importantly, with this technique, we actually go into kind of creative whole brain state. So this is the workers, after we taught them, taking this on board and doing it. They do it 2 minutes in the morning. So they come in very stressed from their home life and from their experience of getting to work. And this grounds them, this gets them all connected to each other. There's a lot of science around the heart and the impact of the heart field on those around you. And they have said it's almost like a lifesaver. There's been such good reports about not just them using it at work, but using it at home, and how they're taking it as a tool for their community. And we even had one of the workers ask if she could train the 100 mums that she meets once a month with their, either because they're pregnant or with their very young babies and toddlers, because they need it too. So there's various possibilities of extending this further into the community. So it was the idea for me that we need to empower people to be able to self-regulate, and that the skills they have are self-sustaining. They work with them themselves. It's not about us kind of dropping in on people, helping them, and then going off again saying, right, great, didn't we do a good job, and I'm glad you all feel better, but now we're going away, and they're kind of not able to carry on without us. We needed to teach it so that people could own the technique, understand what's happening, And I'm getting some good questions coming in at the moment, and this kind of taps in a little bit to some of the stuff that's coming in, about especially the question from Nigel about, is it like a variety of techniques, or do we've got one main technique? What we've done is we have a philosophy and an ethos, and an ethical grounding that means that we've been able to identify in all of the different techniques that we've trained in and we use what it is that kind of works, if you like. So we're kind of teaching more. It's almost kind of educating in the intelligence of the body, and part of giving the skills are actually giving the grounding and understanding what happens and why it happens. So when we teach them a range of different skills, which we'll talk about later, Nigel, they get what they do and why they work. So it's not like we're just going in with one skill. It's not like we're going in with. We do have a kind of, my new technique is a specific technique now, but you'll see that it is really because we've been able to consolidate all of the philosophies and all of the kind of research, and put that together with our own desire to have a very firm ethical grounding, that when we teach people, people get what's going on, and then when we walk away, they still get it. They've got that now, and they own it. So that's kind of how we're working. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, I think so totally. And it's so important, particularly with severe trauma, post-traumatic stress, it feels like you're the only one experiencing that. And
Yeah,
it hits people out of the blue. So it feels like you have no control.
yeah,
And it's really scary for people. They know that they can survive that because they do over and over and over again, but it's really uncomfortable and it's really scary. And that happens even in a place, as in Bosnia, where you have lots and lots of people who might be experiencing similar things at a physical level, emotional level, about what's happening, although they'll have had individual experiences. They still somehow feel like they're the only ones going through that. And I remember when Fiona and I, the first time we went, and we did it in a different way to the way that Sammy and I do that now. But we sat down, we talked about what trauma is, how it affects the body, what is that stress response, and that it is a normal response to a threat. The body's, I was going to say perception, but it's actually neuroception, isn't it? Which
yeah,
is a bit different. And there were two men in particular, I remember, who were sitting on the edge of their seats and leaning forward and nodding their heads, absolutely enthralled in what we were saying, just saying, yes, yes, that's us. But
yeah,
nobody had ever explained that before. So once you get that and you understand it, then
yeah,
they'll understand why it is they're doing what they're doing with the tools and techniques that we
yeah.
teach them, and they'll carry on using them. And that's the important thing as well.
And of course, because they understand that, it actually means that if they're using a bit of tapping that we've taught them and that's not working, then they know they have the other aspects of the different techniques to use together. But they understand that, there's no one right way, um, but that they can understand their physiology and understand what they're experiencing. So,
Yeah.
so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a while. So, um, we're going to come on to a few stories, and also in this, we will explain a little bit about how the techniques are subtly changing. Caroline's going to talk about EFT and Matrix, but this last trip, Caroline was very bold in, well, it just happened really. I don't think it was so much a conscious decision, other than just that she just did it because it felt right and because it was right. I have been developing heart focused healing. Um, Basically, the principle is that we create safety first for the client or for whoever is doing the change work, if you like. Um, and I've realized more and more with the work that I do, and being a mentor for other techniques, that unless the person that you're working with feels safe enough to allow a change, then the change is not going to happen. And at the moment, it's called secondary gain, a reason to hold on to the problem. Reversal and all of these things. But actually, it simply comes down to, plain and simple, that this person has strategies to keep them safe. And if you're going to take away a strategy without replacing that or creating a level of safety for that to happen, it's not going to happen. It's not a secondary gain. It's a primary driver, because we are innately built to survive and to stay safe. And our psyche and our body will do everything in its power to keep us safe. And once we understand that, and once you can help your client understand that, then you can help them understand what's going on and how the techniques are going to help. So Caroline we went with the full intention of working with EFT and Matrix. Even though my work had been moving into more heart math and more heart focused healing, and having given the group trainings where we taught them the EFT, and in fact we combined the heart focused breathing that I taught you at the beginning and bring tapping into that, so we call it heart focused tapping for obvious reasons. So combining heart focused breathing and heart focused tapping, it just seemed very natural to go through the next parts of the process where we work differently, and I'll let you talk, Caroline, about the idea of going back to the memory, because I think you might explain it nicely.
Well, I'll do my best. Yeah. Well, but the first time I went in particular to Bosnia, and the way I normally work with one-to-one clients, of course, because that's what I'm trained to do, is using mainly EFT and matrix reimprinting, as although there are other modalities that I use within a session, to look back at specific memories. And we tap, we use matrix, where we look at the memory in a distance, and then you use techniques to change how you feel about whatever it was that happened. And it works amazingly well. It is wonderfully well. And you'll see when I talk about the paper that was written, some of the results that we got from that were just very, very interesting, and probably needs further research. What I was really interested in was those that it didn't work so well with, and what was happening there, and always questioning, because I always work from, try my best to work from a strong ethical framework, and particularly when you're working in a community like we're working with in Bosnia, it's especially important. We need to be doing absolutely the best that we can in the gentlest way that we can to support people. So I just sort of came away with lots of questions, really. What happens when there are so many memories? What happens when you still don't feel safe for whatever reasons? And is it just too much to go back to specific memories for people, with the risk of raising more
I think
that have been successfully repressed?
I think also the problem is many of the practitioners are trained in finding that main memory, where there was the heightened traumatic experience. And for some of the people that we work with, there isn't just one heightened experience. There are prolonged periods of time, and it's not as simple as finding that one traumatic freeze moment when somebody is in such a heightened state of traumatic experience. It becomes much more complex.
Absolutely, it does, and I would actually suggest that's the same for somebody perhaps who's experienced serious abuse as a young child. So we're talking here about complex trauma, where there are many occasions. Some of the clients that work had been in a concentration camp for 12 months, in addition to being under house arrest, which was no easy option. And everything else that they experienced during the war, so possibly on top of other things that had happened in their lives as well. And the whole thing about it was constant emotional, physical, mental torture.
Yeah.
That's that is what they were experiencing. It was designed to be that way, to break those people down, to break down the community. And that as well is something I think over time that with Sammy and I have both been busy studying more and learning more about trauma and the effects of trauma over the last couple of years as well to aid in our work. But when there's that breakdown of support and there is no support, as there was for many people at that time, it increases the effects somehow of or the likelihood of those experiences staying with you. Yeah. So when we went, we did the first week last year in group work and training people, our clients, in their self-regulation skills that we're using, the resilience skills, as Sammy's been explaining. And the second week was one-to-one work, and I had absolutely no intention when we started of doing anything other than EFT matrix, because I wanted the best for my clients. It was that simple. And at the end of the first day, we were comparing notes and talking about what happened, and I just said to someone, okay, do it on me. I want to experience this, because I was just absolutely intrigued. And I just thought, wow, there's something in this. So do it again. And now I want to do it. And took lots of notes. And I said, well, I don't think I'm going to use this, but if it is in the best interests of the client, then I might do. And with a couple of exceptions, pretty much that was it for the rest of the week, with some really amazing results. Yeah, that doesn't mean that I don't think the EFT matrix reimprinting aren't absolutely fantastic techniques, because they are, and you know, I personally gained a huge amount of benefit from it. But for this particular client group and others like them, my feeling is that sometimes it's not in their best interest to be looking at those specific core events, because there's just too many of them. There is something else that needs to be done instead.
I'll talk a little bit about the difference between EFT matrix and heart focused healing when I get to that. So just reminded me for that. Thank you. Can I just say to the group, I am aware that it's actually nearly 8:15 already. We've only got about 12 slides, and we're kind of, I don't know, not even halfway. It's likely that we're going to run over. So if you can run over probably half an hour, that would be great. Those of you that can't, I do understand. But as I said, this is being recorded. So if you've got any problems, just send me a message and I'll make sure we cover anything that needs to be covered before you go. But just being realistic, it's likely to overrun. Okay.
So I just very quickly share just two of these stories then, because I'm sure that's what people want to know. Let's talk about our guy with the monument. Okay. He's a lovely chap in one of the groups that we're in. Is in an outreach centre. We had two different places. One was in Sarajevo, one was in a small town about 20 minutes drive away. And then the first day in the group work, he came in and he was very, very angry, very angry. And he just talked about why was it as angry, and then we started doing the breathing and everything, and he started calming down. And then it transpired with the story that he had, and this affected all of them as well, actually, that a couple of days before, a monument had been unveiled in the town where they live. And it's a monument dedicated to all the people from the town who were killed in the concentration camps. And that was fine, and it's lovely, and so most of the town were there to see the unveiling of this, and it was on a special occasion during Ramadan, so it's a very special time, very spiritual time for everyone. So he went along, and unbeknown to any of them, this monument was actually, there was an inscription on it, but above it it's one of those very large sort of video screens that you can get, a TV screen, and flashing on and off was large photographs of pictures of all the people who had been killed in the concentration camps, one of whom was his father, and he'd been a teenager or a young man at the time when he was killed. So you can imagine, or perhaps not imagine, but sort of picture the shock that he experienced about that, and for all the others who were there as well, who didn't know. So he was very angry that this had happened, and why hadn't they told them, and why did they get the picture in the first place, and all these questions. Another chap who was there, he was in the concentration camp with some of these people whose photos, and none of them, they couldn't walk past it. So one of them was actually taking huge detours. It's a very small town. It's right in the middle of the town, so they have to go past it. And he's taking large detours so he didn't have to look at this thing. By the end of the 2 weeks, we got everyone together again. And this one older chap said, oh, I find it hard. I can't walk past this. So we're talking about doing the breathing. And this younger man stood up and he put his hand on his chest and he was walking up and down the room. And he said, I was angry, he said, and I couldn't go there. He says, but now I walk past and I do my breathing, and he's got his hand on his chest, his heart was doing this, and I hold my head up and I am proud. And it's and Sammy's probably crying now.
Yeah.
I just about when I'm thinking about it. But it's so moving, and I just think, to go from where he was with very, really simple techniques that he's using, he now has a tool.
It echoes what we were saying as well about not wanting to go back, because one of the things he was angry about, he said, when are they going to let us get on with our life? And obviously he wanted to remember his father, but this constant kind of kind of putting it all out in front of them. It was on the telly every day, and in the outreach place we were at once a month they set the air raid siren off in memorial to what happened. And and that triggered me and Caroline. It was terrifying. So he was angry, and he said, when are they going to let us kind of move on? And that kind of sort of sums up this idea that people didn't want to go back. They just wanted to get on with their life, knowing that they had this trauma, knowing they had these events, but knowing that something's got to happen, that they can improve their quality of life and get their lives back.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we share another one? Which one? Pick one. Which one? They're all so amazing. What about your chap with a smile? He was one of your clients.
Okay, so I was asked if I would. He didn't come to the group meetings where we taught them the basic skills of the breathing and tapping, but I was asked if I would see on the over the 2 weeks for the one-to-ones a gentleman who'd had he had been under house arrest with his family. And he now still lived, I think, with just his mother. I don't know if his dad passed away sort of afterwards, but he in house arrest. He didn't talk about this. I knew from his notes, but he had a very severe trauma and seen his sister raped and murdered in front of him. And one of the things about this kind of genocide and this kind of technique of war is to really break down the men, because they're held and they have to witness these acts, and they can't do anything about it. So it's kind of designed to destroy people on a number of levels. It destroys the community on a number of levels. So this guy was very depressed, very unable to, had sort of fallen into that helpless depression. And also was afraid to get on with his life because he lived with his mother and he had to take care of his mother. So it was, we did some very gentle breathing and tapping, and I used the heart-focused healing technique, which I will explain, I promise, in the next couple of slides. And there's a way of using the technique that instead of bringing out the part of you that is holding all of that, you can bring out the part of the person that you are concerned about. And he was able to do this about his mother, and he was able to send love to his mother. And of course, as we send love to heal another person, we're going through that healing process ourselves. The act of sending love is in itself healing. He was already trained in EFT, and he just from teaching himself, actually not trained, but he'd learned EFT. And so we did some tapping because he was familiar and comfortable with it. So we can combine that in with what we do. And I also take my color mirrors. So after one session, he had lifted very significantly, and he was very comfortable with being able to send love to his mother, rather than because he had some guilt over, he didn't feel he should deal with his own problems, because if that resulted in him leaving, what would happen to his mother? So we didn't go there, we didn't look at that. We just asked, I let him lead what he would like to do. At the end of the session, he was very much lighter, and he sort of smiled. And I said, "Well, my colleague," I said, "I don't do it, but my colleague does. Is a laughter yoga leader, and maybe you want to have a go at that." And I was resistant. I'm now trained in it, but I was resistant at the time because it triggered me. But I said, "Well, all she does is she just sort of says, for example, when you clean your teeth in the morning, you can do the he as you put your toothbrush in your mouth and just make the sounds. When you're making your tea in the morning, and as you get your tea out, you can do the ha ha ha, and then you pour the tea, you can do ho ho ho." And he just started to laugh and to smile, and he said, "I like that." So I just went through it again with him, and we just did some ha ha ha. So we did some tapping. I said, "Let's do some tapping. We'll tap ha ha ha, ho ho ho, he." And the colour started to come to him, and the light started to come to him. So I said, "Well, if you like to do that between now and when I see you next, then we'll pick it up from there." And he came back to the next session, and he was glowing quite remarkably. And we did more of it. We did more laughter yoga, more tapping, more sending love. And after about 3 sessions, he was just like a completely different person. And we were able to talk about some of the things we weren't able to talk about before. And in fact, he also, as a special request, we actually had Caroline, when we got the group together at the end, lead a laughter yoga session. And wasn't it? He was amazing. He was
He
really
was.
enjoying it and laughing and smiling, and was just like a different person.
Mm. Yeah, because laughter edges for those, it's really is your body can't tell the difference between a fake laugh and a real one. So you make the sounds of laughter, but it also works. It's there's something called the vagal nerve. The vagal nerve when you and it actually when you're laughing and moving that part of your jaw, it sort of stimulates that as well. So it's sort of in a number of different ways. It's sending a signal to the body that this moment in time I'm okay. So and more than okay. Okay, so we need to move on.
I'd like you to give the other story, but perhaps at the end of Heart Focused Healing, if you'd like to share
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
story. Yeah.
sure.
So quickly from
Yeah,
Caroline.
I will whiz through because actually there is a link you can see where you can link through and read the paper that was written.
I'll send all of these
So
out to everybody, by the way, as well.
lovely, fantastic. So this is um, a paper that was based on the work that Fiona Smith and myself did that first time we were in Bosnia over 2 weeks. And in that time we had 16 clients who we referred to Healing Hands Network by local agencies. So there were victims of concentration camps. I think it was victims of torture. There's a women's group. I can't remember the name of the women's group at the moment. So most of the women who were involved had at some point been in what became notoriously known as rape camps, so that they were concentration camps which was purely for women, and they experienced, well, the clues in the title really, just really horrendous things, all of them, men and women. So we started off with introductory group work and we ended with group work, and in between each person had 4 one-to-one sessions of EFT and matrix re-imprinting, and we used a basic heart math with them as well during that time as well, actually, to help keep calm, but not as completely as the full thing that Simon teaches. And we measured results. So we measured using a standard form to measure levels of post-traumatic stress, which was slightly amended and was translated into Bosnian before we saw anyone at the end, the very last, before we saw them in the final group session, and then 4 weeks later. And there were really, it showed some significant results that looked very interesting, to the point where when I got back, I thought, well, do you know we need to share this. So I took the results to Liz Both and Tony Stewart, Dr. Liz Both and Dr. Tony Stewart, who were both then working at the University of Stafford, and said, look, what do you think? Is this something that we could put into a paper and have it published? And they said, well, yeah, because you've got these results and it's amazing. So without them, it would never have been in print. So huge thanks to them for doing that. And from that, actually, Liz and I have co-written an article which hopefully we'll be able to share with you soon, which will be going into being accepted for a journal, but we'll let you know about that as soon as it's out and tell you more. So the feedback was amazing. So from that, again, as I was saying before, I was sort of looking at it, this is great, but I also had some questions about a few of the people involved where it didn't seem to be so as well, and I want to know why. And was that because of this few amount of sessions they had, or was it something else? So it's the questions that I've always been asking ever since, and working on that. From that, though, I went back the following year with Deborah Shakespeare, who Deborah and I used to deliver EFT training together, and we trained I think it was 18 people in EFT and matrix reimprinting, all of whom had their own experiences during the war. 3, I think, of them had been our clients in the first session, in the first time we were out there, for a number of different reasons, mostly because they've got an awful lot of self-work to do before they can move on and use it with anybody else. Nobody has actually put that into practice in using EFT Matrix with their own clients over there, and I think there's lots of reasons for that. One of which is, I think, to do with the way that Sammy and I are working now. Yeah. But it was very interesting, amazing stuff, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
No. Good. Thank you very much. Okay. And of course, Carl Dawson has been incredibly supportive, not just because the initial work was in Matrix, but since then with what we're doing now and with the new ventures that we're going into. So he continues to be very supportive.
He certainly does. Yeah, big thank you to Carl. I mean, really, none of this would have happened without Carl's initial support for us. So, in lots of different ways. So, yeah. Okay. Ooh, developing new techniques.
So basically, to sort of summarize the picture, we have been working with individual clients and working with groups and starting to do more research into the deeper understanding of trauma and of recovery from trauma. And I've been particularly looking at the work of Stephen Porges and the polyvagal theory and the understanding of the importance of connection with the community and how this creates a level of safety. And also the work of Dr. Robert Scare, Dr. Peter Levine, and of course Dr. Bruce Lipton. So, and there are many more, but really we've been looking at the science behind what happens in the body when it's triggered, what happens in the body, and there's a lot of the Heart Math Institute also do a lot of research into the physiology of the body when in stress, when it's triggered, and through the heart focused breathing and heart coherence, what happens to the physiology to go into healing and further from healing, build resilience. And resilience is not about putting up with something. Resilience is the ability to bounce back, the ability to cope with adversity, the ability to be adaptable, and to recover. So we've been putting all that together at the same time as understanding what mattered to us about helping other people. That it wasn't about dropping in and helping other people and feeling good about that and having everyone see us as the heroes. It was about going in, giving skills, support, and whatever it took to help the community to recover, and being able to walk away knowing that that is going to grow in and of itself and be sustainable and be owned by the community. And I don't know if you recognize the photograph. I have put who it is at the bottom, but Viktor Frankl was one of the inspirations behind the kind of ethical foundation of what we do, which is a quote from his book Man's Search for Meaning. And if he can be in the adversity that he was in the concentration camps in the war, and still understand that he had a choice about how he felt, and he could, basically it comes down to self-regulation, but he had a choice, and part of being able to make that choice is understanding, and being able to find meaning in what happened. And that's not possible while you're traumatized. You have to relieve the trauma first and help people to find that kind of sense of self and that sense of meaning and purpose again. And for us, that kind of all comes together in being able to give these skills and have them be owned by the people that we teach them to. Just going to answer one or two of the questions that I've got coming up. The question about monitoring it, Christine, I know that Caroline's just talked about the paper that was written, but Christine has asked, how do we monitor the changes and monitor and review what we're doing out there? So we have a system that we're creating where we actually check in and we do a questionnaire beforehand and then also a questionnaire after. But part of the ongoing training and support is to build into the system that kind of extending the self-regulation, if you like. And also kind of combines an answer to Nigel's question again, that we teach them to understand what's going on and to share the philosophy of what's going on. So if you're working from a strong ethical and a strong understanding of what's happening, using the tools and using the skills is the second part of that. It's not about steaming in and using a certain set of skills or steaming in with EFT or another skill. It's actually understanding that we create safety, and if that's the first thing you're doing, then everything changes. Everything, the reason that you're doing it, what you're leading with, is very different. So the technique that I developed, heart focused healing, is really based on that. It's based on understanding that by regulating the heart and doing the breathing, the heart then actually regulates the autonomic nervous system and the brain and the body and the thoughts. And if we can do that for ourselves, we can do that with our family, with our friends, our colleagues in our community. And that actually the science of this does prove that the more people do it together, the bigger the impact. And therefore, obviously, the safer the environment. So the greater level of connection, and again, this connects back to Porges' polyvagal theory about that community connection and taking social cues to create a level of safety. And this is all before any of the deeper work goes on, any of the deeper change work goes on. But what it does is it creates that safety first. It creates that understanding of what's going on and that ownership with the individual, to then be able to go into clearing the energy and clearing and let's say releasing any stuck energy that is holding the information in place. Now, what I mean by that, and tapping on the meridian points can do this, as can a number of other techniques. But the most important thing with this technique is that we do not go back into a memory. The technique is as simple as putting that thought or that feeling or that issue to one side and then making it clear that we are not going to go back into that, but just noticing where you feel that and are holding that in the body, and then inviting that part that is holding all of that to step out in front. It's a technique that keeps you present. It doesn't take you off somewhere else. It keeps you very present and very grounded, which is part of the safety mechanism of it. It also then doesn't revisit any of the pictures, memories, events. The client is very safe not to have to do that. But of course, we know that we're working with a subconscious mind, and we know that the client knows exactly what it is they need to clear, and exactly what it is that is being worked on, even though they're not revisiting it. By working in this way, there is a much deeper systemic change, because the subconscious mind knows how to propagate that into all the other areas that those safety, survival strategies have been taken. So without having to go into those areas, we can help to lead to kind of support the client in connecting with those other, all of those other parts that are connected, and we keep the client aligned uh, in their energy system. We balance the brain so that when the brain's in a whole brain state, it creatively can find new resources and new resolutions. So we're making sure that that's all set up first. And as I say, leading with heart coherence. I've now found, as we've both found, that tapping, having created this coherence and this alignment first, is far more powerful. Now, the difference with using a technique like emotional freedom techniques is that you associate with the emotion, you bring that emotion in. It's okay if you're already connected to it, like I'm already angry about something, I tap that and release that. But if there's an event or if there's an emotion I want to release, if anybody in the group has done their personal peace procedure or chosen something to work on, you have to reconnect with it in order to slightly bring that in and release it. And it's just not necessary. So we don't use tapping in that way. We actually teach people to put the issue to one side and address it in different ways, but they can use tapping to sort of complement, if you like, and work with shifting the energy.
Yeah,
Um,
we've actually we have developed a specific way of tapping, haven't we?
yeah.
That combines it with that, and then with other elements brought into it as well. But it all starts off with doing the heart coherence, breathing first.
And the other two, I mean, it is a sequence, but the other two key things really that I've just put there about this technique is that we're just sending love. We're not aiming to fix anything, to understand anything, to bring in any resources, and we're not, most importantly, we're not going back anywhere. We're not revisiting anywhere on a timeline. We're staying fully present. And this came to me because I was having problems when I was helping people and giving advice and mentoring with Matrix, when people didn't have a memory. They didn't have anywhere to go to. And Carl himself says, you know, you can't do Matrix unless you've got a memory. And yet, if you understand that there is a trauma there, there is, from Matrix, it's called an echo. There is a part of you that is holding all of that. But if you don't know where that part is, or what the event was, or if you do but you don't want to go there, then it's possible to ask that part to just come out here in front. But what I wanted to achieve was, rather than giving external resources or changing the event, we just send love to give those inner resources to heal and repair from inside, um, that disconnect that happens in a trauma. So when we're traumatized, it is the event that initially causes it, but the trauma happens when we become disconnected. So what we seek to do with this technique is we seek to give the client that reconnecting the part that got disconnected. And then the next important step is to reconnect that part. So those of you that are asking about the difference in the technique, it's understanding those principles, the principle of that disconnection, of what the freeze is. It's understanding that reintegration of that part that got frozen. That kind of, I think Sylvia Hartman talks about the nourishment of the learning of something, the actual energy. And it's about getting the energy flowing and everything into a state of balance, and bringing back homeostasis rather than having these parts split off and separate. We reintegrate them with new beliefs and new learnings, and we bring about a healing on a physiological level as well as the mental and emotional. And I had one client that I worked with that the very process of getting her to a deep level of safety, and knowing I was there, and just with the breathing and just talking her through the breathing, getting her to a level of safety, knowing that she knew, and she was one of the ladies in the rape camps, knowing that she didn't have to go back there, that we could put that all to one side, but that she could bring out the part that was holding all of that. She, in the very process of bringing that part out in front, she was going through a very deep set of tremors. And I don't know, we haven't got time to go into the detail of that now, but when we release a trauma, the body releases from the muscles and from the system the energy that was stored in a freeze response. And animals shake off their traumas, and we've learned not to do that, but we can and we should. And this lady, in the very process of bringing out that part, went through probably about 3 or 4 minutes of deep shaking as she released the trauma, in just simply by being safe enough to actually allow this part to come out, so she could send love and she could heal and she could actually reintegrate that part. So I found there are 3 or 4 points where these deep changes can happen. Okay, so I have a dream.
Yeah.
We need to move on, and we need to
Yeah.
summarize
Yeah, I'm
what's
sorry.
going on now.
I,
No, it's okay.
yeah, I think I just sent a message to everyone, which was meant just for you, Sam, saying we're already 10 minutes over time.
I know.
But
Okay. So,
yeah, I have a dream. Yeah,
so
very briefly.
what are we doing that's different, and why are we doing it now?
Yeah. Okay, so the dream 5 years ago when Fiona and I were in Bosnia was to work with communities to spread what we're doing. So we didn't just go in and we go in and we work with people and we come away and then we go back in and we work with people. We wanted to train local people to be the trainers. And at that time we were thinking EFT matrix. But I tried that. At the time, it didn't work for lots of different reasons. But what Sammy and I are doing now is meeting Sam and combining the way she and Vic have been already working in Indonesia, and using the methods that we use now. It's much easier, I feel. It's simpler, and it's easier for people to take on board and to be able to use that and share it with other people. So our dream now is, with Community Resilience Network, is to set up a sustainable program wherever it is we may be, with whatever community that is. And in this instance, at the moment, it's the Stress to Strength project in Bosnia, where this time we're going and we're working with groups over the 2 weeks that we're going to be there. But we want to identify, we've got a couple of people in mind already, and begin to, where possible, train local people to be able to do what we do, so that it grows, and then eventually for them to be the trainers, so that it just keeps growing and growing within in the way that is right for them.
Brilliant.
Does that sort of sum it up briefly?
Absolutely. I mean, I can answer a couple of questions here because they're kind of, everything's coming together now. So I've got a question. Jane would like to ask how we work with PTSD with the families, and Christina's asked, did people in Bosnia want someone to come along and take the pain away, or were they hoping to learn to help each other? What's important to us is also what's important to the communities, which is to own things for themselves. So Bosnia in particular, incredibly proud people, incredibly resilient and amazing people, and very keen to learn, very grateful and very keen to learn, but very much want to help each other. And already, some of the younger ones are volunteering. Can we lead groups, and can we learn more? Where can I learn more? So they don't want to be beholden to anybody. They don't want to. They want to be able to do things for themselves. Now, what's important about the way that we're teaching, which also comes into the monitoring and sustainability and working with families, is that we are building a structure where we initially teach a group in the community, but we teach them how to use it with each other, and we teach them how to go back and use it with their families. But because it helps, there is a very specific communication technique to use with the heart focused breathing and the healing, and and we teach people how to have patience with themselves and with their families, and how to gently use the technique, and how their heart field impacts on other people. So by teaching the science behind these things are actually measurable, Christine. We can actually make sure that when we go away, people understand. I wouldn't quite say we give them a written exam, but obviously we can, and it may come to that at some point, depending on how we extend what we're doing. But we can assess whether somebody understands the actual principles, and then allow them to put that across in their own way. One of the big problems, I think, with a lot of trainings is how do you teach a specific technique but then allow the person to go off and do it in their own way? And I've realized that it's understanding the principles that underpin it. If you can get the principles that underpin it across and ensure that those are understood, and for us, that's built into the ethics and built into the
Yeah.
community care and the support for each other, then you can see how they use the skills in order to achieve that. So it is a model that we can begin to create layers of support. So we're initially teaching the people that come to the group. Some of them come as families. You know, we had a mother and sister, a mother and daughter, and there's been husband and wife come. In Bosnia, it's very specific because some of the children potentially are the result of the rapes. So there are some very complex family situations. Um, but of course, what we're teaching is people is how to self-regulate, so that they can then see how that impacts on other people and how they can help other people to self-regulate. So helping their families and helping the other people in the community is built into teaching them the impact of these techniques on themselves and other people. So we eventually want to be able to teach the groups and the communities, and then have the next step is to have some of those people kind of we train them how to do it and have them do it with us, so that we can see them leading and see how they do that, but offer them a different level of support so that we can make sure that they get what they need. And then as we then pull back, we are more as consultants going in to ensure that those people who are running things at a different level get the right support that they need. So there is a whole structure that we're putting in place that takes it from us stepping in and teaching it, to then teaching people to lead groups, to then teach people who eventually will become the trainers of other people, and we will be able to go in and continue an ongoing assessment of how they're doing and what they need, and how we can help them. That obviously includes how we can support them further working with their family, or working with other, encouraging them to how to work with other groups in the community. So taking it out and creating other groups and other circles to, breathing and tapping circles and that sort of thing. So I hope that answers a couple of the questions. So the question that I had is, what is the technique that we're offering instead of EFT and Matrix? It's called heart-focused healing, and it is based largely on all of the sciences that we've been studying from the Heart Math Institute. And it begins with heart-focused breathing, which is they call it neutral. It's the first step of regulating the heart rate variability, which then has an impact on the rest of the autonomic nervous system and the emotions and the mind. There's a lot more science to it, but that will be another webinar.
Yeah.
Just to check I haven't missed any questions. I'll just go over my questions again in a
And
sec.
just to mention, we do some tapping,
Yeah,
but it is in a very different way. It's not going to specifics as we normally do with EFT, and we've got that as on a theme here, heart focused tapping.
yeah.
So it is very different to classic EFT.
It is. So basically I'm doing kind of two main things. One is that so Caroline and myself and Vic have set up a new community interest company. It's a not-for-profit organization, And what that means is, unlike a charity you can either be on the board of directors, but then you can't work for the charity, or if you want to work for the charity, you can't be on the board of directors and therefore influence the charity, and it kind of you lose it to whoever's the directors. A new thing has been set up within the last year called a community interest company, which means you can apply for funding like a charity can, but you can be on the board of directors, but you can also work for the organization. Now, the organization itself has to be not for profit, but we want to be totally transparent with the way that we need to work this, because everyone I think who knows us understands how busy we are and how making things happen is kind of takes a lot of time. Unless we can do some of this training and be paid to do it, it's not going to be something we're going to be able to give the time to do. So we very much do not want to make a personal profit from this at all. What we want to do is to be able to cover our costs and to be able to make some income from the other work that we do outside of the Community Resilience Network, so that we can actually go and give the trainings and basically make it possible for us to do this. So this is a not-for-profit organization. We make no profit in the organization, but eventually, and we're not doing this now in Bosnia, this is we're not being paid at all for doing this. We're giving up 2 weeks of our time to go out there for nothing, losing 2 weeks effectively. But eventually we want it to be self-sustaining, where we can pay our admin like charities do, and we can pay ourselves for time where we go and give trainings. Now that's a way off, I think.
Yeah, and eventually pay our main people in whatever country or community
Yeah,
it is that we're in as well.
yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. So it's about creating something that has longevity and is self-sustaining. So forthcoming trip. This is why it's different. This is why we could no longer work with the in the same way with the Healing Hands Network. This is why we have set up the community interest company, is because we wanted to work in this way, in creating this community-owned, self-sustaining structure. And this is really why we're going back again more as in association with and working alongside the Healing Hands Network. So they continue to do the one-to-one, they continue to do the hands-on work and the hands-on healing, but they are very supportive of what we can go and give to the community in terms of being able to help the community in the times, for example, when nobody can go out there, because Healing Hands Network can't go for the whole year because of the weather and other circumstances. And it was very apparent that something needed to happen where when no one else can go out there, the people that they've been supporting can have skills where they can continue to self-manage and self-regulate and relieve stress. Caroline, would you like to add anything to that? And I'll just check any more questions.
Oh, throw me. Just thought you summed that up really well.
Okay.
Yeah. That was actually it was really succinct and it explains it all. So yeah.
So it is important that we grow. And in order to grow, we've had to set this up in a way that technically in the background, we've got a new website, we've got a new client management system where people who sign up come into the system and we can keep in touch with them. But we do need support. And we can't leave the webinar without asking for your support, because you are really important to us, and your compassion and your concern, and your skills. We know that there are people who are on this webinar because they're interested in training in PTSD, and the answer to that question, Leslie, is yes, there will be training. It is a separate thing that we are creating for the training company at the moment. I have a program called Conscious Health Practice, and this at the moment is forming the foundation of the training, because it does teach all of the philosophy, the ethos, and really all of the kind of the integrity behind what we're doing. So, and you can't do that. You can't take the training unless you've done the 4-day personal breakthrough first, because for us, we have to ensure that people are personally able to manage the situation. We haven't touched on some of the realities of some of the stories in the webinar. We've been able to sort of just talk generally about them, but when you're confronted with some of the things that come up, it's really important that you've done a lot of self work and that you are in a position to be able to manage whatever comes up. So the training in conscious health practice is at the moment forming the foundation of the self-help personal breakthrough that gives the foundation to be able to then go in and take the one-to-one coaching training and eventually the group training. We will be writing special programs for the Community Resilience Network that will focus on specific issues or specific aspects of working with PTSD, but it will all be built on that foundation of a very strong ethical and scientific background that is vital that people kind of take on board before we go any further. So the two things I would say probably most important are understanding that ethical background and understanding the importance of self-work. Would you like to add anything to that, Caroline?
No, you're on a roll. This is no, that's
Chocks are
I think
away
you've explained it really well. Yeah. So, but we can't do any of this without money. We need your fundraising skills as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of you have done fundraising in the past. We've really this trip alone is costing us about £1,500.
Yeah.
And that's volunteering our time while we're out there. And there's various cost involved, which includes paying for our translators while we're over there, of course.
That is one question I haven't answered. There's been a couple of questions come up about whether the clients speak English or did anything get lost in translation. None of the people we worked with spoke any English. One person actually who ended up helping with translation. It is a skill in itself to work with translators. The benefit of this technique of heart-focused healing is the minimum amount of wording and of talking required for the technique to work, actually, because you are working within the central nervous system, if you like, of the client. So it's very important to have a good interpreter, and you are obviously very reliant on your interpreter to actually be able to interpret what you are saying. But Caroline will be the first to tell you that one of the things that's most important is that you do the work with the interpreters as well, because they're going through whatever it is the client went through, and if the client is relaying these horrific stories, then you need to ensure that you are looking after your
remember they're hearing everything twice.
Yeah.
So and usually no matter what organization, if it's a voluntary organization you're working with, the interpreters and all the people who work there are generally people who have been through their own very challenging experiences as well.
Yeah.
So whatever they're hearing may well trigger them into their own stuff.
Yeah. So just as it is for the practitioner to do their self-work, so it is also important to look after the interpreter. And it's really good to have a briefing and have a discussion with the interpreter first to ensure that what they are understanding of what you're doing is clear, so that you can be sure. But it's a bit like when you're in rapport. When you're connected to a client, you can tell the nuances and the subtleties of what's happening. It's the same thing with an interpreter. You can tell if an interpreter is going off at a tangent or is not translating what you're saying, because the body language from the client and the translator is different. So it's about really getting tuned in and connected with your clients.
I have a whole section on working in my Finding Peace course.
And I think we're going to have to
so if you can, anyone has any fundraising ideas or anything, we'd really appreciate it. As with advertising, sharing our stuff. We have a Facebook group now and a Twitter account as well. The Twitter one, I think we're stress_stress because we couldn't get we couldn't get anything to do with our name there, but we're community resilience. Just share everything would be fantastic. And if you have a particular skill in any way that you think might be helpful, maybe you're really used to filling in fundraising applications, because to do
Yeah.
the sort of we need every penny, every pound, every penny counts. But to do things on a bigger scale, we could really, if we can get
Yeah,
a good
definitely.
funding for a large amount of money, it'd be fantastic. Or anything else, perhaps you're really skilled in marketing or something else that you think,
It's
perhaps
worth
you're good at
remembering.
voiceovers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That although we're talking about our trip to Bosnia, the work for a community resilience network is not limited to Bosnia. It's really limited. It's really to work anywhere with any community, including communities in the UK and communities,
Yeah.
um, any community that needs help with support with trauma and stress. So that's also worth bearing in mind for even your local community. Uh, the important thing is to be able to be in a position to help them, and that all comes down to funding. So we do have we've set up now, as well as the I'll come back to any questions. As well as the website, we do have a giving page, and we've got the Facebook and the Twitter account. And also there is a link. I'll send these all out to you. There is a link to an interview that Sharon King did with us when we were out there last time. And I've also found an interview that we did ourselves, where we interviewed, we just talked with each other after Caroline had that first experience of using heart focused healing with her client. So I'm going to make all of that available to you, as well as a link to the Healing Hands Network, should you want to go and have a look at the work they're doing in Bosnia outside of what we're doing. And Conscious Health Practice is the link to my new training if you want to have a look at that. But I will just mention that after this webinar, this is my first hosting of a webinar. I am hosting another one on the 9th of September, which is an introduction to the 7 steps to heart focused healing, which will get you a bit more of an understanding of what's going on with that. And then a free 1-day workshop at the Brighton Hotel in Brighton. So if you can get yourself to Brighton on Saturday, the 12th of September, there is a free 1-day introduction. There's a couple of guys on this call that have already done the 4-day training. We haven't got time now to ask them what they thought of what they've done so far, but if you can get, if they want to come along, if you guys want to come along to the 1-day workshop, please do.
Yeah.
But that is the beginning of the journey in working with us at the moment. It is what prepares you for that whole grounding in what is going to be a requirement to be able to work with us. If you just want to work with PTSD and want to learn more from us, we will be having a series of workshops. Okay.
Mm.
Now, there aren't any hands up. I think I've answered everybody's question. I think I've gone through, as they've come up, I think I've managed to slip them into the. Uh, so if there's
Mm.
anybody now got any questions, wants to raise a hand, I
Just because
will.
of time, it's so
Yeah,
late.
I'm
I'd
sure.
I'd like to finish on a quote from one of our clients when we were out there, just very, very simply. I'm not going to go into her story now. You can see it if you click on the YouTube videos, that's the link this time. You'll hear us talking about it there. But this lovely lady, through everything that she'd been through after her experiences with the over the group work and then heart focused healing, she said, I would like to send love to all the people who did these things. And for me, that sums up everything that we're aiming to do here, everything we are doing, everything we plan in the future. Because for that lady, she found a peace inside and wanted to share that with others too. And that's really what it's all about.
So just to say thank you, really. It's the time has gone very quickly, and I'm going to have to bear that in mind for future.
Sorry
Um,
we've kept you so long. And thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
for the
everyone,
question.
for sticking with us. You
Um,
know,
you will get a copy and a copy of the slides. And obviously, if you think of any questions after we've finished, then by all means send them to us. And if for any reason you need us now, we will be hanging about. You can text or get us on Facebook, um, or drop an email if you need to talk to us. But just to say thank you, really. We leave, is it Saturday, Friday or Saturday?
Saturday,
That's
yeah.
how organised I am. um, and we're out there for it's a good solid 2 weeks. So we get come back just over 2 weeks. Please look out. Well, we'll send out to you details of our blogging on the new website and any videos that we make. And obviously, if you've got any questions as we go along, feel free to ask them throughout those 2 weeks as well. Okay, so
Yeah,
just remains for me to say thank you,
yeah,
and
thank you.
uh, we hope that you'll be able to get in touch, and we hope that you'll stay in touch as we carry on our journey. So thanks, Caroline. It's lovely to talk with you as always, and
Yeah, well, you too,
I'll
Sam, and
probably talk
thank
to you.
you, everyone. Yeah.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.